Welcome to Cracker Cattle Country. Today, we are taking a tour from Fort Pierce to Bradenton, not because it's the direction or the specific direction, but because the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And I didn't want to drive all day into the sun, so we're going to start from Fort Pierce and drive 120 miles to Bradenton.
Well, if we're doing this cattle drive route, this trip across Florida, gotta see some cattle. Hey, buddies. No, anyway, here continuing on this trip across Florida. We're just north of Lake Okeechobee right over there, but we're halfway between, kind of. You got Fort Pierce that way and Bradenton over there. But right now, we should see our friends over here, the cattle. They're all staring at me. Hey, buddies. They're all staring at me. That's awesome.
After the U.S. took possession of Florida in 1821, settlers moved south from Georgia and Carolinas into the open lands above Lake Okeechobee. These pioneers found a land of scattered hammocks, marshy sloughs, and open prairie, perfect for free-ranging cracker cattle. Water was abundant, forage was rich, and the remoteness meant herds could roam wild with little interference. Families with names like Rawlinson, Whidden, Chandler, and Underhill became synonymous with the area. Many of these early ranchers were descendants of Scotch-Irish or English settlers who blended backwoods know-how with cattle savvy. Their lives revolved around the rhythms of the land, branding, rounding up, and driving the cattle to market, and tending to fences and windmills. One of the most prominent cattle centers to emerge was the Okeechobee City, founded in the early 20th century but rooted in much older traditions. The city became a vital shipping and trading hub for cattle raised across the surrounding interior. The arrival of the Florida East Coast Railway spurred this growth, giving ranchers a direct connection to northern meat markets and plants in the Gulf ports.
But anyway, yeah, we had to stop and see some cattle. We're just north of Lake Okeechobee, so I figured stop here at this ranch right here. Everybody's here staring at me. But anyway, yep. About halfway through our cross-trek Florida cross-trek. Follow this old cattle drive route. But the reason this one was so popular was because it was the only dry land, the dry cross-Florida dry route. So, yeah. Anyway, let's continue.
Long before the theme parks, high-rises, and airboats, Florida had a trail, more dust than road, cutting clean across its midsection from the Gulf to the Atlantic, from Bradenton to Fort Pierce, or in our case today, from Fort Pierce to Bradenton. It was called the Cracker Trail, and it was a lifeline for cattlemen, a stage for commerce, and a legend in the making. The Kissimmee River, which flows southward to Lake Okeechobee, was once a major corridor for cattle drives and transport. In the 1800s, cattle were driven from as far north as Orlando, Kissimmee, across the river basin toward the lake's north shore. From there, herds can continue west to Punta Gorda or toward Fort Pierce for coastal shipment. These drives traverse wide, wet savannas where cow hunters on cracker horses push small, fast, and tough cattle through palmetto scrub and sawgrass. Along the way, cow camps dotted the landscape. Makeshift shelters built from cabbage palms where herders slept, cooked over open fires, and tended to their dogs and horses.
Kind of in a county cross road here. I'm not sure which one it is, but yeah, it's 68 over there, which goes to Fort Pierce. 441, which goes north and south, heads straight down to Lake Okeechobee. And then, yeah, we're heading over here to, on our way to Bradenton. The Kissimmee River should be right over there, but all these cattle over here are staring at me. Like, who is this strange guy? But anyway, yeah, as you can tell, the reason why this route was popular is because down here just north of Lake Okeechobee and south of St. John's River is the only, I guess, dry routes across the panhandle of Florida. So it was before all the bridges and the railroads became popular, this was a popular route. There are many more routes here across Florida for cattle, many more cattle drives and ways to get cattle to markets and into the shores for route. But this one was one of the least dry ones. So anyway, before I ran over, I'm gonna stop this.
Though the rural expanse of Lake Okeechobee has endured for centuries, it faces increasing challenges. Range lands being sold for development, water policy changes, especially those affecting the Kissimmee River Restoration Project, alter traditional hydrology and grazing patterns. Yet many ranchers have turned to conservation easements and state land trusts to preserve their legacy. The tale begins in the mid-1800s, when Florida's interior was still frontier country, unmapped, untamed, and often underwater. Spanish explorers had introduced cattle to La Florida in the mid-1500s, but as rugged settlers, many of them descendants of Scotch-Irish and English stock, who made cattle ranching a way of life. They became known as the Crackers, not from a slur, but from the crack of their leather whips echoing through the piney woods as they drove longhorns across the state.
Here's another little community just on our trip west towards Bradenton. Got these small little farming communities here. You got some cattle ranches over there. You got some farmland here, some agriculture here. Big thing down south here is you got lots and lots of sugar cane down there. That's a whole different video, a whole different story. Pretty interesting and fascinating story in itself. But yeah, driving west here along the old Cracker Trail, I guess is what they called it. But all these little farming communities and these little rural communities, agricultural is king down here. It's hard to imagine. This is the place where Disney World is north of us. You got Tampa right over there. You got Cocoa Beach, Naples, Miami over there. You got Florida Keys down there, Lake Okeechobee about 20 miles from here. But yeah, right in the middle of it all, got this huge area of farming and agriculture and cow folk and country folk and Florida man. Interesting. It's awesome. Fun to explore. Lots of history here. Lots and lots and lots of history here. But yeah, continue this journey. Gotta keep going west. Go west, my friend. Let's go. Nice little community church here, Church of God. Can't wait to see you. I'm sure everybody's community goes to church too. But yeah, nice little church here. Anyway, let's go. Lots of driving to do.
These weren't cowboys in the Hollywood sense. Florida cow hunters rode shaggy ponies, wore tattered hats, and kept their rifles slung low, just in case a panther or bandit tried their luck. Their dogs were lean and loyal, their language twanged and laconic, and their trail, it cut east to west or west to east across a wild Florida few folks know today. The Cracker Trail ran roughly 120 miles, connecting the Gulf town of Bradenton with Fort Pierce on the Atlantic. Along the way, it crossed present-day counties like Manatee, Hardy, Highlands, Okeechobee, and St. Lucie. In the 1800s, cattle were driven east of Fort Pierce, where they'd be loaded onto ships bound for Cuba. It was a brisk trade, and for many years, it would made Florida the leading cattle exporting state in America.
All right, we just crossed Kissimmee River here at, just on the western side of Kissimmee River, but there's a sign here that says Fort Passenger, which was built in about 1837. So this is about 2 years after the Second Seminole War started. This Fort Passenger was a stockade placed here by Colonel Zachary Taylor. And for the Seminole Wars, it didn't last much after the Seminole Wars, but Passenger was named after an artillery officer that was killed during Dade's battle up there in Dunellen, near Dunellen. But anyway, yeah, Fort Passenger was here, got the Kissimmee River right over there. I guess I'm not sure what this is. Doesn't look like it's been open in a while, but anyway, continuing our trek across Florida, the panhandle of Florida, on the Cracker Trail from Fort Pierce to Bradenton. Yep, and we had to make the stop. Got a historical marker, of course, got to see those, what those are for. Got this beautiful giant oak tree right here. And got the Kissimmee River right there. See if I can get the drone up a little bit and see if I can get some footage of that before I head out of here. But anyway, Fort Passenger was right around here. I think it was actually on the other side, somewhere right over there, but historical markers here. But anyway, you got east, west, north, south. All right, let's continue this journey.
To travel the Cracker Trail was to endure heat, snakes, bugs, and swamps. Riders would be gone for weeks, sleeping under palmettos or in rough shanties. There were no bridges. Crossing rivers meant swimming with the herd. Rustles were a constant threat. So was the weather. A late summer storm could turn the trail into soup. Yet, the cow hunters persisted, and not for just for profit. For many, this was a calling, an identity. They were the sons and daughters of a rugged land, and the trail was their bloodstream. By the early 20th century, railroads and highways began to edge out the cattle trails. Fortune shifted. The trail was slowly swallowed by citrus groves, sugarcane fields, and sleepy subdivisions. By the 1960s, few even remembered it. But some did. Today, much of the trail runs along near State Road 66, State Road 68, and the landscape has changed, but the remnants remain. Lone oak tree here, a sunken watering hole there, open cattle pens, and barbed wire fences half buried in saw palmetto. If you drive it, you'll pass through places like Arcadia with its historic rodeo roots, or Okeechobee still holding on to its cowboy soul. You'll see silhouettes of cattle against the fading sun, and maybe if you're lucky, you'll spot a rider on horseback, hat tipped low, whipped coiled at the ready. The Cracker Trail is more than just a route. It's a story of Florida's past, its resilience, its grit, and Florida's untamed heart. It reminds us that before the condos and cruise ships, before Mickey and Miami Vice, Florida was wild, and those who tamed it did so with sweat, saddle sores, and the crack of a whip.
Well, Travis, we made it 120 miles from Fort Pierce here in Bradenton. Kind of the end of the trail, but it's good. Kind of a lot of different types of environments we crossed through. You got the farmlands, you got the agricultural, you got the cattle, you got all that side of it. Then you get back to all this modern Florida. So, but anyway, this is Bradenton. This is the end of the trail for us today. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Bradenton, Florida, 120 miles. It's a long trip. Can't even imagine doing it on pushing cattle. No roads, no obvious markers. Man, it was awesome. Anyway, again, thanks for joining us. Or me. Gotta head home now. Anyway, see you guys next time.
So until next time, travelers, thanks for being here.